Welcome back, listeners, to the brighter side of blue. Very excited for our guest tonight. We have a legend, another legend, Tommy. This is Danny.
Damn right, Tommy.
It's JJ.
And producer John's with here. Tonight, we have a 40 years and 7-month veteran of the police department, retired Colonel Gerald Leyshock, my old partner, my friend of my family, and a police legend, Tommy.
Absolutely.
So we're just gonna kind of run with. He's had such an expansive career of great things, humorous things, and some knucklehead things that there's no way we could pin down a flow chart of what we're going to speak about.
Going to talk. What do you got to say about old Jerry Leyshock there, JJ?
I ran into his neighbor, Judge Stelzer, a couple
all
weeks
right?
ago.
Is he
great.
okay?
I didn't run into him. I saw him at the soccer game.
Okay,
Thank
gotcha.
you very much. Actually, I don't remember where I saw him, but I did see him. And we brought up Jerry's name, and he said that he called him a Renaissance man.
Renaissance
And
man.
thought
I like
that-
it.
And he said, and it's actually true. He says he one day they were at a family or some function in the neighborhood. There was a piano there, and Colonel Leyshock sat down and can play the piano like nobody's business. He's an accomplished pianist,
Yes.
That would be that word.
and I know he's got a story for that too. But he's
I know
also
why that's touchy. That's a touchy
he
word.
boxes. He boxes. He actually teaches inner city kids at 12th and Park on a regular basis, weekly. Teaches inner city kids. He also teaches chess. He's a mentor for young inner city kids on the chess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you still volunteer at a food kitchen or at a
No, I'm at Oasis International.
Oasis International? You can talk about that too. And then what else? I mean, he just does everything. And he's a cut man. He's been in major
Pro cut man.
Pro cut man.
Pro cut man.
He's trained professional boxers. He's had them in his under his realm.
Missouri Boxing Hall of Fame.
Missouri Boxing Hall of Fame,
you
and
go.
actually the financial arm of Guns and Hoses and Backstoppers.
That's I just
According
found
to
that
one of
out
our
last week. Or a couple
You
weeks
just
ago.
found it out, and you just threw it
It's
out
amazing.
there.
He's like everything.
Colonel, you're gonna have to clean that up. JJ had a little
No.
seizure a couple weeks ago and thought that you were the financial arm. But hey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, guys.
Let's have at it. What do you think about JJ's?
Well, actually, my wife said, "Is there something about our finances that I don't know about?
You know what?
That you're
Actually,
able to support families?"
Maybe just a Strail family, I guess.
Yeah, pick and choose.
hey, and I was more embarrassed about the cursing than that you'd be mad at me for cursing.
I did think it was.
A little over the top.
Yeah, it's not. That's not really you.
No, thank you.
So, but hey, your last podcast was outstanding. Tremendous story by Malachek about the governor. John, you probably had something to do with knowing them, didn't you? The governor.
A little bit, but Tom was, he was the brunt of Joe Speece's ire and Dan and everybody at the table, actually. So we brought him in to rebut, what happened, because he wasn't there that week. And then he came in and we were kind of busting on him, and then he went into that governor story and everybody just stopped.
Oh my gosh.
He first of all defended himself very well and deflected like nobody's business.
Well,
deflector.
and Jerry, it was the old golden child debate, and we've all
Oh,
of us here have had great careers and spent a limited amount of time in uniform. But Tommy might have us all beat. But Speece was at the table too, so he's pretty tough to beat when it comes to the limited time in uniform. So that was the whole debate, and then when he started telling that governor story, everybody kind of shut up, and then that's when we knew it was, this is a good story.
No, it's provocative, and it gave you a good sense of what that gentleman was like.
He was a good man. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It gives you a little insight to people, somebody that a lot of people don't know.
So we're going to call you Colonel for the show. Is that okay? Colonel Leyshock?
I mean, you could easily just call me Jerry, but that's fine.
Well,
It's your show.
We didn't even go
We're
into
not
his
going to take
police
the
career.
way out.
Hey, he's my golf DraftKings partner, and I still call him Colonel.
Yeah.
Hold on one second now. We didn't even get into it. Like, you kind of overshot his police career, but
Well, I was just getting in there. That was my segue, what I was going to say when
Right.
I call him Colonel. So I was
Okay.
going to kind of segue into that.
Well, JJ
But
didn't have to interrupt this time because Tom just shoved it over to JJ, and Tom cut you off with JJ this time.
So it was a double cutoff,
double
which is
cutoff.
almost unheard of.
Well
was a
played,
double
Tom.
team.
Well played.
Well played.
see,
I thought mine was
40
important
years
to
on the
get in.
job, Colonel, and I'm just going to tell one quick story that I was privileged to be your partner when you when you left narcotics under unique circumstances that you can choose to talk about or not. You know, it's hilarious, but you don't have to talk about it. But then you came to the 8th District, and you came into uniform with me, and I was ready to roll to get those parking tags, wasn't I, Holmes?
We had to have a little discussion about that.
On day one, didn't we?
Well, no doubt. So Danny is a good policeman, had good street sense, but unfortunately, I think some of his mentors, here I come, 6.5 years, I'm a narcotics detective. I come to the 8th District, and we handled, if you remember, we handled a cutting right after 3 o'clock roll call. So really, the first part of the story would be this. We go there, and the guy had been stabbed, and Danny's kind of in charge because I'm
brand new.
This is my second tour of the 8th, but I'm brand new. Even though I have like 10 more years on or whatever than him. So he's in charge, and he tells the nurse, "What we're going to need to know what the condition is." She goes, "Well, it's in pretty bad shape." And Danny's like, "Critical?" She goes, "Critical." So Danny calls the sergeant, says, "This guy's critical," and they call homicide. So I was like, that kind of looked critical to me. So I see a nurse that I know a little down the hall. I go, "How's that guy doing?" She goes, "Oh, he's gonna be fine." So I told Danny that, and he goes, "Well," I go, "So cancel homicide," and he goes, "Well, what do we tell him?" I go, "Well, tell him it's a miracle." I don't know. He ain't gonna die tonight. So
Nice try.
but he's very conscientious, doing his job, and that's what the nurse said.
I got bad information.
You did.
Right. You're just relaying what you got.
Hey, you know the smartest thing about Danny though? At some point he realized I got to grab onto your coattails and just keep on going, and it worked out pretty well.
How many dumpsters in the alleys did you drive a police vehicle into?
I did the first night. The first night you let me drive because you drove the first couple of nights. And then I said, "All right, let me drive a little bit." Because this is my second tour of the 8th. I knew it better than you did. But I did back into an alley. And in the alley, backed into a dumpster. And then a little later, I think I clipped one on the front end, too. So
Anyway, I counted. The answer is over 37.
One of the other things Jerry did was he was the head of the Cardinals security down at the Busch Stadium. And I was wondering if you had any good stories that you'd like to tell about the Cardinals and your time down there, that one of the stories that you found interesting or anything like that.
You know, that's odd that you would bring that up because I just got asked over the weekend, so at Thanksgiving, a lot of relatives and all that, asking, in those times when you were with the Cardinals, you had to run into a lot of celebrities. Did anybody stick out? And I cannot be asked that question without a couple of people. The first being the woman with the most beautiful eyes I ever saw was Jane Fonda, whom Joe Walsh had told me. Now, in the 9th inning, Ted Turner and her, and I guess he had a couple of sons, maybe from a prior marriage, tall guys. They're going to come into the dugout for the 9th and then get them to wherever through the clubhouse level. And I said, all right. And one of our players, and to this minute, I couldn't remember when I was telling the story, hit a home run. We were out. It was the playoffs. It's in the, 96, 97. And she grabbed me because she wasn't expecting the fireworks going off. She grabbed me, and I looked at her. She's right here, and she goes, "I'm so sorry." And I'm telling you what, she was mesmerizing, and she was probably in her 50s then. She was mesmerizing. But the nicest person was Glenn Close from Fatal Attraction.
Big Fatal Attraction.
No,
look at you.
Wait a minute.
Go ahead.
Jane Fonda, you didn't call her Hanoi Jane, did you?
No, I was as shocked as she was.
JJ's over there just waiting for that one. He's waiting for that one. What are you talking about?
Yeah, why bring politics into this? It's a beautiful woman. Grabbed me.
Doesn't take away from the fact she had beautiful eyes now.
No, my gosh.
She's definitely good looking.
And hug Jerry.
But I mean, mesmerizing. But Glenn Close was so nice, and her. She was there to throw out the first pitch. Her sister suffers from a bipolar,
Right.
And I don't really remember the name of the
Organization.
organization, but they said they wanted me to take her a different place and just talk. What we talked a lot about was the Natural, making of the Natural. She's a big baseball fan. A lot of people didn't know she used to sing the national anthem for the Mets.
No kidding.
Wow.
So, just stuff like that.
What about-
JJ and I had some fun with Bill Cosby.
Right. I was going to say him.
They got
Yeah.
a great picture with us in there. And I had to walk him around for 30 minutes.
Yeah,
and he
Bill
was like one
Cosby.
of the nicest guys you'd ever meet. But
What about your player? What player did you get along with the most, or was closest to you?
Oddly enough, I was, for whatever reason, I got along really well with Albert Pujols. Fernando Vina was a neat guy.
Yeah.
Right, and
Albert
so,
was cool.
the Latin players were always really friendly to policemen. Just always. The Latin players always. Bobby Bonilla was a neat guy.
Hey, I got a story that I'll never forget, and I thank you for it, because in the 2011 World Series, Game 6, you had me and a group of officers line up the eighth inning on. I was on the first base side
Right.
by the dugout, and we all lined up because it was getting into the game, and it was one of the greatest games in the history. And then they ended up tying it up. The Cardinals did, and we're all pumped up. And you came down. You said, "Hey, we're gonna win this game. You guys gonna be here tomorrow night." So I was telling everybody, "Hey, we're gonna be here tomorrow night. We'll be back tomorrow night when they win this game." And then the next inning is when what was the guy that hit the home run that put him up 2 again? What's his name?
That was his second home
David
run.
Freese?
No, on their team.
On the other team. We thought we were going to win the game, and then all of a sudden, he comes up. The guy that had drug problem,
They were playing Texas.
Texas, yeah.
Gosh
Hamilton.
darn it.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
Josh Hamilton.
Josh Hamilton.
Josh Hamilton hit that homer, and I looked at the guys down the line. I go, "I guess we're not going to be back here." And then
David Freese did
his
his
thing,
thing.
and then we ended up coming, and he's good to his word. I was on the field when they won it.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Hey, Jerry, going back to Bill Cosby, I remember you telling the story about that somebody got locked up, one of the unruly fans,
Right.
and Bill Cosby said something to you. Do you remember that?
Well, he had so many different. You might have to remind me on that, because he talked about poor people, talked about people being arrested. He had social justice issues. He was fascinating. Tell me to remind me.
You were walking Bill around, and the police officers were locking some guy up because he was drunk and caused a disturbance. And as the guy was walking by with the police officers, Bill Cosby looked at you and said, "Hey, officer, what would you tell this kid's parents?" And then you said, "He didn't bring his A game today to the ballpark."
That's a good one, John. That's
Nice
good.
memory, producer John.
Yeah, boy, that is a good one.
Well, I remember because I was a little bit late. I was working that game, and you were walking with Bill Cosby right by the Cardinals clubhouse. And you're like, "Hey, John, this is Bill Cosby." And I was trying to get there. And I just walked up and I kind of patted him on the back and said, "Hey, nice to meet you." And he gave me the dirtiest look I've ever gotten from anybody. I guess I wasn't supposed to touch him.
The strangest thing that ever happened to me, and I wonder if you guys would even remember this, was the laser light incident.
No.
Oh no! Somebody was shining in Batter's eyes.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that was a good one.
So
Tell us.
Well, it's just fascinating because all of a sudden, Latricia Allen
Was it
got a
playoffs?
hold of me. No, it was just a regular kind of a nothing going on kind of night, weekday night. And Latricia goes, "Hey, we got a problem. Somebody just shined a green laser, I believe it was green, on the pitcher." And she goes, "And I know where it came from. I know the box." So Tony Wagner was in there, MLB security.
Retired.
And 2 or 3 other guys, Bobby Siriati, Bill Swiderski, couldn't have 2 better guys with you on something like that. And so she tells us the box. Tony goes one way, and we go, Danny, this would be me. I know the state like the back of my hand, but I got lost. So
You ran into a dumpster.
I eventually get there. Anyways, we go in there, and I literally get attacked by a woman. "What are you doing in here?" And it was her box. So I'm, out of respect for the situation, I'm not going to say whose box it was. Big donor to the Cardinals. And I said, "Well, we're here for a reason." I said, and so Bobby and Bill are behind me. I said, "Somebody in this box shined a laser on the pitcher." And she goes, "Well, I guarantee it didn't happen here." And she goes, "And you need to turn around and get away." get out of here.
And you were in uniform.
I'm in uniform. We're all in uniform.
Wow.
So I said, ma'am, hold on a second. Now her husband comes over too. You ain't got anything better to do? I go,
Oh, here we
hold,
go.
Hold on. I said, just I'm not a security officer. I'm in charge of the police detail down here. We're not going anywhere until we figure out what happened up here. And so she keeps it up. And then in those boxes, the 1 lieutenant that's in there, he's about 85 years old. He said, ma'am, you are talking to the guy that's in charge of the police detail down here. So he had to chip in. Anyways, all of a sudden, Bobby goes, Jerry, take the phone. I go, hey, Bobby, she is on me. It's a standoff. There's like 20 people still in this box, and they're all watching, and I'm not leaving. Anyways, Tony Wagner's on the phone. He goes, hey, I know where they threw the laser. He goes, I got 3 in custody down here. Where are you? He goes, in the police room. So he goes, I'll meet you outside. So when I go, all right, let's go. She goes, well, wait, what's going on? What? Now she's kind of like, she knows something's not right. And we go out there, and in the dumpster right outside that room, and you go through the nachos and all that, there's the laser. So it was not, she had a son in there, and then 2 of his friends, and then they admitted it. But here's the funky thing. How often do you think something like this happens? When the game's over, they brought Mike Matheny up there to ID him.
Wow.
The 3 in the cell.
The manager
Yeah.
was the one that picked him out.
And he goes, he points, he goes, that's him, Jerry, like that. And the guy's just looking at him. He goes, yeah, he goes, you know what you did. And Mike Matheny's the classiest guy in the world, but I wouldn't want to tangle with him.
He's mad.
And so,
He's mad.
pretty good when you got to get the manager of the Major League Baseball team to make an ID. Yeah. So
They get their
there was a
box
lot
taken
more.
away?
Huh?
Did they get their box taken away?
The box was not taken away. This woman who had a high corporate position with that company was fired the next 2 days later. It was
Wow.
unbelievable. We don't
Good.
need to say any names.
Yeah, we don't need that.
I think
Can
I
you tell
really
us
can't
after
tell
when
the
we turn
story
the
because
mics off?
sure, of course.
Okay, good.
But to see Mike Matheny, Mike was mad, and I think he said something like, "Really get somebody hurt out,
heck yeah.
whatever." So
That's before we get off the Cardinals. Huggy came up with the name of Glenn Close's organization. It's Bring Change to Mind. So Huggy's the glue that holds his podcast
He
together.
is.
He's an invisible glue. that
I have a
keeps
lot of
us
respect
together.
for him.
Yeah,
Always
very,
did.
Very good. So Bring Change to
Awesome.
Mind.
Yeah, that was good. Fast. Boy, you guys are fast.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
We don't mess around
Telegraph. Came in on the telegraph.
Jerry,
Do you guys intercept signals?
Yeah, unbelievable. Colonel, tell us a little bit about the boxing and the 12th and Park and the Guns and Hoses.
Well, let's talk about guns and hoses because I'm really, really glad.
How many years have you been involved in that, Jerry?
I fought in the first show,
Yeah.
1987.
Wow.
Fought eight
Wow.
times.
You fought 8. Is that a record?
No, Ryan Counterman's got me.
Does he really?
Yeah.
So you're not going to come out of
Tough.
retirement and fight one more time?
You can't.
Oh, I'm sure they
won't
can
let
make it
him
happen.
hurt.
Yeah.
His wife
But-
won't have it.
Hey, you think back, even though there's a 9-year age gap between Dan and I both suffered. Of course, we all knew him, but me and Danny personally, one of the worst days of our lives. And we saw Backstoppers in action. That's when Steve Strail died, which we just celebrated the 30th anniversary at Helen Fitzgerald's. Tom was there, and I was glad to see you. So, you heard of this is 93. So there's already been 6 fights. And, you know what a noble organization Backstoppers is. But we are in shock. And we all just gathered at the Strail house. The policeman that was the closest, obviously, our inner circle was there. Danny was there. Other people would come by. Nobody knew what to do until Charlene Urson showed up. Charlene lost her husband, I believe it was 1980, Greg Urson, and had kind of taken it upon herself to go to scenes like that. She's an angel. If it
Yes,
hadn't
she's
been
a great
for
woman.
her, I don't even know how we'd have got through that day.
Right.
And then, oddly enough, around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, for whatever reason, I was by the front door over on Finkman.
Yep.
Danny.
Yep.
And saw a car pull up. 2 guys, dark suits, got out, came up and said, hi, we're from Backstoppers. I'd like to talk to Kathy Strail. And this is how fast Backstoppers steps in. They went in the kitchen with her, and I kind of stood to make sure nobody else came in there. And they explained to her that they were going to give her a check just for incidentals. And they say, after the funeral, and when you're comfortable enough to do it, we want to talk to you about everything that we're going to do for you, which entails paying off house,
Right.
medical bills, car, school, education. And, this was all started in the late 1950s by a guy that was a butcher, but he was in a
Really?
businessman league. Yeah, I used to know his name. And talked about, we really need to support law enforcement. And look what happens where these families are devastated by the loss when it's in the line of duty like that. So when you think about that, we saw it firsthand. I was with Ron Battelle when he was with the widow of Julius Moore when he died. And it's the first time I'd ever been there when Battelle talked. And it's almost sacred. It's surreal. And the widows
Right.
are in shock. They're in shock. And I don't think they were so young. Julius was so young. Just a good young man trying to go help his guys chasing a burglar, got hit by an 18-wheeler. She couldn't comprehend what he was telling her. And so
go
then,
ahead.
by the way, may I give kudos to Huggy? On it, I don't know why you don't need a scanner. You got Huggy. Nicholas Blasi was the name.
butcher?
Look at
Yeah, the
Huggy.
butcher.
Well done.
1959, was that right? Thank you, sir.
That's
When
amazing.
and that's when it all started, huh?
Yeah,
That's
well,
awesome.
it took a little while to get it going, but yeah. I think I heard not long ago maybe 90 families had been supported, and I think, how many children were that? So let's go to this year. Really glad you guys touted it for everybody, just to remind everybody what's going on. We had an unbelievable crowd, unbelievable, and the fights were incredible.
Yep.
But I had the honor of wrapping hands for a policeman named Lucas Roethlisberger from the city. And in 2010, he was shot, him and his partner were shot, but he was shot in the neck, in the arm, but he shot in the neck, which dropped him. And then while he was laying there, he was shot in his bulletproof vest, right in the chest and in the arm. And his partner had already been shot. The police later caught the gentleman, I believe, is doing life in prison. Roethlisberger obviously had to have emergency surgeries and suffered not one but two different strokes doing that. So they don't know if he's going to live. Told him he'd certainly never be a policeman again. Probably would never even be able to walk. And then I don't know how many years later, maybe 7 or 8, maybe 10. I was in the ring, and I didn't know this was going to happen, but they brought him in the ring, and he had to be aided up the steps, but he walked on his own into the ring to give a trophy to somebody. And I tell you what, out of everything I've seen, that really affected me. I couldn't believe it. So he goes back to police work, and then this year in February, he's shot again. And while I was wrapping him, I told him that I was going to be on this podcast, and I asked his permission if I could talk about him. And he said, yeah. And he showed me the bullet wound right here.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, right
From
there.
the second incident?
So upper torso to the side. Unbelievable. And then he fought. I mean,
That's
so
awesome.
that's,
Incredible story.
That's what it's all about, right
Incredible
there.
story.
Yeah, it is what it's all about. So, guys, I was thinking about as I was driving here, John and I talked a little bit, and I said, I'd love to be able to talk about Roethlisberger and the courage that he has and just to
Absolutely.
go after it. I think you could tell a lot about what state of policing is in just by what's going on with guns and hoses. When John Burke, who's really up against it right now,
Yep.
and anybody,
Yes.
I hope they're praying for him.
Absolutely.
When he started going around asking guys, you remember he almost died on an operating table, a routine surgery, and so he was at the academy as he's rehabbing. So he's having handball tournaments. He's just organized all this stuff, and he started telling guys that would go up there, and there was a certain clique of people that were always working out, but he also spread the word. Hey, what would you think about fighting the St. Louis? How he came up to me, he goes, what would you think about fighting St. Louis County policeman in a boxing match? I go, when? Let's go.
Yeah.
He goes, well, it's going to be a little while. But so the first 2 years was in May, early May. We had 70 people the first practice, 70. And then
Wow.
you guys know, because John, you and Danny participated, that Zambo, Major Zambo, Bob Zambo, who also had fought in it, put out a message saying we needed more people, you know, and you guys answered the bell. Maybe 5 years after that, maybe a couple years before I retired, I used an email system. I used the email system and wrote to key people that it's a sad state of affairs when there's more people in the police department choir than there are trying out for boxing this year. Maybe we could get some more people.
Yeah.
Got a little flack for that.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he hates dumpsters and he hates choirs. So we're keeping a list. Choirs and dumpsters, you're out.
But I mean, Todd Ross does a great job. Mark Wassum's helped out greatly. Now Irv Lockhart, who fought, man, Irv may have 4 or 5 fights there. Elijah, gosh, why would I all of a sudden forget Elijah? Great human being, helped Todd coaching this year. But they just did not have many guys try out. St. Louis County.
Yeah, it's kind of changed. The format of it's kind of changed. Back in the day, it was really city versus the county, and then it was policemen and then
Versus
firemen.
Yeah.
And then they kind of changed it as it
still,
went on because
why
everybody's
aren't
down
guys
and
trying out.
it's
Elijah Simpson, by the way, Huggy. This
Again.
guy's incredible. Has the State Department contacted you?
They can't have him.
ball.
They cannot have him. He's under
It's
contract.
incredible.
Right. No, he's our guy.
They can't match his salary.
All right, wait a second.
Well, no.
Huggy fought.
Huggy.
We need to
Huggy.
keep his identity.
I'm not
down.
saying anything, but I can't say this.
He fought.
He fought.
Damn right he
fought
did.
One of the best fights of the night there.
Yep.
So just
But-
know that how much respect I have for a great picture too you gave me. My wife loves that picture.
No more clues.
All right, Danny.
We got to keep Huggy.
All right, then we don't know nothing about Huggy. Huggy's a shadowy figure. Let's talk about Danny's fight.
Oh yeah,
Dan-
we need to talk about that.
Well, first off, I got to say this. So people don't know, but John and Danny both had nice records on the sidewalk. Boxing's a little different. You guys did good on the sidewalk. So Danny tells me, hey man, I just can't get my wind together. And I said, Danny, all right, I'm going to tell you right now. And I didn't even joke about it. He's drinking like, what do they have, 64-ounce sodas?
Big gulps.
Big gulps. But 64 ounce, I think you're drinking 86ers. And I said, quit drinking soda till this fight is over with, and you'll be surprised how your wind is. And so he started training better. We
Laid off
sparred
the soda?
some. Yeah, he
Yeah.
laid off the soda. But now we've got a little problem. At the weigh-ins, he comes over to me and he goes, Holmes, I'm a little concerned. You know, this guy's a marathon runner. I go, well, he ain't going to be running during the fight, I don't think. That doesn't mean
He was a
anything.
triathlete marathon runner.
Yeah,
and I'm
something.
a
Tall.
Southside. Never mind.
Yeah, well, you went out there and took care of business. Good fight, good technical fight. And you beat him all 3 rounds. It was
Yeah.
good fight. I was so proud
Thank
of
you for saying that.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Did you go back to drinking soda after that?
No, I did not.
Did you stop?
I gave up
Bourbon.
soda. But a funny story was, remember who the doctor was? Our team doctor was?
The real popular doctor.
Cooper.
Yeah, Doc Cooper.
So when Steve Savard raised my hand because I won, Savard kind of looked at me and I was like, what is he staring at me? He had to lift my arm. I went in the back and Dr. Cooper goes, son, your lips are blue. I think you're a little dehydrated. I'm going to give you an IV. I said, hey, Doc. You remember that? I said, Doc, you mind giving me 2 because I'm heading up to the tavern. And he goes, are you serious? I go, please. And he did.
Perfect.
Danny's the only guy I know that went saw a doctor, sort of like a concierge doctor, and he loved policemen, so he offered to do these real extensive physicals. And after he did Danny all of his blood work and all that, he told Danny, he goes, well, your numbers look good. He goes, but I got to tell you, I really think you need to quit drinking, or at least not drinking as much as you do. And so when we met out at the parking lot, I go, hey, what'd you think? I think this guy's really good. You gonna go back? He goes, no, I'm never going back.
No,
Dude told me stop drinking.
That's what he said.
I'm in my prime.
I'm not going to go back till I bring him good news.
I'm in my prime.
Have you ever been back?
Never. He tells me things I don't like to hear.
So your doctor didn't say what my doctor always tells me.
What did he tell you?
Wow.
There's a
All right, I want to tell one more story.
No,
wait,
we
wait.
got
we got all kinds of time.
We
got
got
time.
time.
Maybe
All kinds.
His career,
But
I'll
on the
just-
boxing end.
Okay.
I had the opportunity to be the sort of guest speaker at they used to have the South Broadway had a big deal every year, and they'd have a couple of fights, and they asked me if I would speak and also make the fights. So we had lost Jimmy Hathman for one of the neatest guys I ever met in my life. Tough guy.
What
tough.
does he? What did he do,
Jimmy
Jerry?
happened to.
Well, he was an iron worker, and he was with the International, but he coached boxing at South Broadway. He's the kind of guy, just a rough guy, came from a rough family. Everybody knew he'd fight at the drop of a hat, drinker, tough guy, just tough guy. But he had a heart for law enforcement, and if you walked into his haunt, Biggie's, where he liked to have lunch 3-4 times a week. If you were a policeman, he never have to ever have seen you before. He'd tell the waitress, I got their check. And so we had an event, and he was acting strange around me. And I was like, man, what is wrong with this guy? And then the next time I saw him, because I fought 8 times, he wrapped my hands all 8 times. I wouldn't let anybody else wrap my hands. And we were close. I used to go just on my own and go spar with his guys a lot. So finally one day I go, are you mad at me about something? What's going on? And he started crying. And so I let it pass, and then he goes, I'm really having a hard time with what happened to Bob Stanzi at Marcus
Right.
St. Louis.
Yeah.
And I said, we all are. Horrific. Another line of duty death. Horrific. He goes, yeah. He goes, but I never met him before. He goes, but I bought him lunch that day.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And then he walked 2 hours later. So, that's the kind of guy he was. So I gave the speech. I knew it was going to be heavy on he'd only died like 3-4 weeks before that. And I talked about how boxing and policing is so similar. The courage you have to have, dedication. I always told people that you give me a guy that used to fight on the sidewalk coming up, or a boxer, they do better as a policeman because they don't overreact. Somebody reaches out and slugs one. Those guys, they're going to take care of their business, but they're not going to overdo it. I always, and I talked about Backstoppers. Guns and Hoses was coming up. This is 2 weeks before Guns and Hoses. And then I just said, by the way, your first fight tonight, we're going to have a young man fighting from St. Louis Police Department, George Henry, whose father was killed in line of duty. He's going to be participating in Guns and Hoses in 2 weeks, but he will be fighting tonight. And, he didn't win that fight, but he did win 2 weeks later at Guns and Hoses. We've had 2 survivors, fight.
Right.
David Weinhold, Rick Weinhold's
Right.
son, and George Henry, which is pretty incredible.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty incredible. And then we got Lucas Roethlisberger. But here's let's tell one fight story before we move on. I can't
I love
hardly
these.
talk about.
Keep
we
going.
love that.
Keep going.
Well, yeah. All right. We'll come to that.
We'll tell stories all night long.
All right. But Chuck Wepner was a provocative person, the Bayonne bleeder. He was. I think he went into the Marines. I think he lied about his name. He's a great big guy. He fought heavyweight. I think he went in there before he was like 17. He's in the Marines, but grew up fighting in Bayonne, New Jersey, even though he was born in New York City, and then decides that he had all kinds of jobs when he gets out of the service, but he takes some fights. And last guy, kind of interesting, a lot of people don't know, last guy to fight Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston's last fight.
Wow.
Wepner took 70 stitches in the fight, 75 stitches.
70
This
stitches.
guy, yeah.
So he did well.
Out of nowhere, he had a decent record. What he was known for was going the distance, and they organized a fight for him to fight just outside of Cleveland with Muhammad Ali. Ali was to get $1.2 million. He was going to get $100,000, but it was his biggest payday. So they said he quit his job. He was like a liquor salesman, and who knows what all he did. I think they made a movie about him. But
It's get Rocky Balboa.
he's getting, well, actually, Sylvester Stallone got sued, and many years later after that was settled, did admit that really played into the Rocky.
Are you serious?
Yeah,
I knew that.
Yeah. So he's going to fight him. So the day before the fight, him and his wife are in a hotel in Cleveland, and he goes, "Come on, we'll do some shopping." He buys her a nice necklace, and they buy some stuff, and then they're in a store, and he goes, "Hey," "I want you to get the sexiest necklace that you can find in here." He goes, "Because tomorrow night you're going to be sleeping with the heavyweight champion of the world." So she gets a negligee. They go the next day, then the fight, and he knocks Ali down in the 11th round. Now, some people say it was a slip, but it was ruled a knockdown. And but 9 or 11 seconds before the fight's over in the 15th, 19 seconds, he gets stopped by Ali. Great fight, just was tough. Hung in there with him, but he really wanted to go the distance, but he hung it in there with him. So eventually, after some interviews and whatever, they go back to their room, and he sits down in a chair in the room. He's got a bag of ice in his right hand on his face, a bag of ice on his left side of his face, and his wife goes in the bathroom for a little while, and then she walks out in the negligee he bought for her the next day, and she goes, "So how does this work? Do I go to his room, or does he come here?" He tells that story.
Oh, that's
Now
good.
you've met all kinds of impressive boxing people through your career. You couldn't even tell you who the most famous are, but you've had a ton of. Just name a few of the boxers you've met over the years.
Well, the best. I worked cuts for Stevie Forbes, the classiest fighter I ever met, and he fought De La Hoya on pay-per-view, lost, but he was great fighter. I worked cuts for a guy from Detroit named Bronco McCart. He had over 50 pro fights. Another class act. Those are the kind of guys that stay with
Right.
you. Here locally, you never meet a better guy than Ryan Coyne, right? Irish
Yeah.
Ryan Coyne.
Yeah.
You went to Philly with him and covered cuts?
Mohegan Sun, and then we fought at the some big casino in Atlantic City. I'll never forget that because we ended up in the emergency room in Atlantic City at 4 o'clock in the morning. You think it's seedy here, a little seedy there, but had a lot of fun with DeAndre Lattimore, who we win the last round. We win the
He's a St.
IBF,
Louisan, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
DeAndre
Grew up in
Lattimore,
the
okay.
Peabody Projects. Great guy. Never came back to St. Louis. Just said, I don't need it. Drives an 18-wheeler. Has his own business now. He's got 5 daughters.
Really?
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. He's doing really good.
He's
That's
a good
what you
kid.
want to
5
see.
daughters.
Yeah.
I've got 3. That's a handful.
Yeah. So
Where's
a lot
Joe
of fun.
Stoffel on this
Well,
this chart?
You could not find a bigger character than Joe Stoffel, as you guys all know,
Who's
especially
Joe?
John, the
Let's
heavyweight.
set up Joe.
So he was a heavyweight, and you would see him around, and his trademark was the minute he got out of the ring, he'd have a beer in either hand, walking around telling everybody how good he did, even though he got knocked out in the second round or whatever. So I'll never forget, we go to Kansas City, and the old boxing coach from 12th and Park was Kenny Lohr.
Oh, God, yeah.
Korean, he got shot in Korea.
Yeah, you creep.
Exactly. Coach boxing for 50 years, was a Golden Gloves champ, tough as anybody you ever met. And we're in our room, and Kenny liked his beer afterwards, and there's a knock on the door, and it's Joe Stoffel. So I invite him in, and he goes, "Can I have a beer?" So Kenny gives him a dirty look, but he does give him a beer. And Joe's face, he's still got a little bit of a bloody nose. His face is all swelled up from the fight he lost. He goes, "I really want you guys to train me." And Kenny goes, "Well, we're not going to train you." He goes, "You're a fat ass and you don't like to train. You won't do anything we want." And he goes, "Are you done with that beer?" And Joe goes, "Yeah, can I have another one?" He goes, "No, get out of here." So Joe didn't last too long in that room, but he calls me and he goes, "Come on, I really want to train." So I told Kenny, "Let me just work with them. You don't even have to talk to them. Let me just work with them." And we had some experiences. John Frank and I and Kevin Rudolph drove to Columbus, Ohio for one of
Oh my God!
John, you gotta go. You gotta talk about that, especially how it ended and what happened.
Well, we drive up to Columbus. It took how many ever hours to drive up there?
7.5.
Yeah. Joe's fighting that night in this big barn up in Columbus.
It's on their fairgrounds.
Yeah, on the fairgrounds. And Joe had no. Joe just was there. You know, he was there to get a paycheck.
Find Derek Bryant,
Yeah.
who could really
No
fight.
motivation.
So we go, we find Joe, we find the place, and we're hungry. So we went. Eddie George has a restaurant right across from the campus. You know,
The
Ohio
running back
State.
from Tennessee,
Yeah.
Ohio State.
Ohio State, yeah.
but the
Where-
Tennessee Titans.
Yeah, he played for the Titans.
Right.
Yeah, he's an NFL guy here.
So anyway, we go. We don't have a whole lot of time, and we go, and we're going to have dinner. Well, we had this truck that we rented to drive up there, and there was a no parking spot. So we were like, we don't have time. We're going there. So we go in, we order, and Kevin goes out to move the truck. It was a minute, and it was already gone. So some guy comes out of an apartment and says, "Yeah," goes, "There's a tow truck sitting here like 24 hours a day. They towed your truck." So we're like, okay. So Jerry and I sit and we have dinner, and Kevin's going. The tow yard's like 4 blocks down and 5 blocks the other way. So we told Kevin, "Go, just run for it. Go get the truck." So we're sitting there. I'm drinking a beer, and Jerry's having his dinner, and Kevin's calling me and goes, "Yeah, I'm about halfway there." And then then he calls us. He goes, he's getting out of breath because he's running, and he's like, "All right, the neighborhood's getting a little dicey down here. People are kind of looking at me." And then he finally calls me back and goes, "Sarge, I don't think I'm going to make it." Because I think they're going to kill me. So he finally got there, and it was supposed to be $100, and they charged him like $600. And we go there. So he gets the truck. Now Jerry and I have already eaten. You know, I've had 4 or 5 beers. He comes back to the truck. Kevin looks like he's been through. You know, he looked like he fought that night. And we get in there. We drive. We fly down there. We park right by the front. We go in there. Joe goes. Jerry gets Joe ready to get in the ring, gets them all taped up and that. And Joe doesn't. He don't even know where he's at. So Joe walks in the ring and walks right into a right hand, and Joe's down. He's bleeding. He's just and Joe's a big, huge guy. This guy just cranked him, and Jerry doesn't. He just looks at Kevin, and goes, "Go get the truck." So they're trying to drag Joe out of the ring. Kevin's got the truck out front, and Jerry gets him in, and it was like a makeshift, little locker room there. They're just a little partitioned off. And Joe had a buddy with him, and Jerry looks at his buddy and goes, "Can you get Joe to the hospital? Because we got to go back to St. Louis." we were in that cow palace for like 11 minutes. And we were on our way back to St. Louis. It was amazing.
That's a good story.
That is funny.
That's a good memory, John.
No.
That is very good. Colonel,
did you
before we
Kevin
get on,
Rudolph is now a DEA agent, I believe, isn't he?
Yeah, he's out in California. He's getting ready to go over to Europe for a few years. So
Very good.
A guy who worked for Jerry and I, and Jerry brought him down to housing, which I'm sure we'll talk about here shortly.
it's on my list.
But real good kid, and he got on with DEA. That was his.
Name some people that weren't policemen and that had huge parts of Guns and Hoses over the course of the years.
Yeah, you cannot talk about Guns and Hoses, and keep in mind the first year was 1987, but you can't talk about Guns and Hoses without talking about the Four Horsemen, who were the founders. And in a way, almost a fifth one, but let me say Jerry Clinton, Merle Taylor. Merle Taylor was one of the scariest people you ever met. Unions, all the stories about him. But he loved kids, loved boxing, did so much for inner city youth. Jerry Clinton, good man, tough guy, self-made man. He had an idea to raise some money for Backstoppers. That's how it started. We could do something in boxing. And his idea early on was, let's get a team of St. Louis police county fighters to fight New York firefighters.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what. And Then we brought in Steve. Oh, sorry. They brought in Steve Holly, Jack Martorelli. So Jack, former boxer, Golden Gloves boxer, and then Steve and his father. Father, very, very involved with amateur boxing, USA boxing here in St. Louis. Same way with Steve. So knowledgeable. So they got the perfect team. And Steve immediately said, "We don't want St. Louis fighters fight in New York." He goes, "Those guys are like pros, and they got so many policemen to draw from."
Yeah.
Right.
So then they came up with the idea, city versus county, police and fire, and then eventually it came to just, it's almost a free-for-all now, but it's law enforcement.
Right.
So it works good. But out of everybody, only Steve's still alive. He works tirelessly to do this. He's not a policeman.
Still?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Yeah, he was
heck yeah.
big in this
Oh,
show.
yeah.
Incredible.
Oh, absolutely.
Incredible.
David Stokes succeeded Jerry Clinton. He's all in. The board is a who's who of celebrities, just people that really care about this. So, sometimes when policemen get down, you can never not thank an organization like Backstoppers. And then, Dan, you had probably more exposure than I did to the Police Foundation. Same way,
Yeah.
getting equipment and the things that they do.
Yes.
So it's something that police officers can hang their hats on, and law enforcement in totality, that we still have people that respect us.
Well, there's
and help.
a large majority of people that really respect what law
Yes.
enforcement does.
That's right.
And we appreciate all of those people.
Oh, absolutely.
So would that be the Mount Rushmore of
The Mount Rushmore
You guys,
Guns and Hoses?
yeah, you guys have brought out the best of my brain.
That is unbelievable. Hey, the Mount Rushmore of Guns and Hoses, and you'll probably pay for the memorial out of the Leyshock fund.
Yeah, you got the money.
Yeah, we know.
Got some cash now.
Because if JJ
Sure.
says
He
Thanks.
he's
should be one of the horsemen.
Jim, I
himself.
know your heart was right when you made that statement.
Thanks.
And you were on the
Because
phone. I heard.
Jerry was very, very close with Steve
Right.
and Kathy and
Hit it, Huggy.
Living your life after death.
Every move I make, every single day, every time I pray, I'll be missing you. Thinking of the day when you went away. What a life to take, what a bond to break. I'll be missing you.
It's kinda hard with you not around. Know you in heaven smiling down, watching us while we pray for you.